How's it going, Dab Nation? Today we have a treasonous story about the cringiest spoiled brat rich kid that thinks he has, and I quote, Donald Trump Riz, because he thinks he's actually the president, you guys. Like, oh my goodness, you guys, like, this generation is cooked, bro. Like, Gen Beta is already here, too, and, like, it's already getting wild. Like, this country is doomed, you guys, but, like, this is gonna be a wild story. So sit back, relax, like and subscribe if you're new, and enjoy the show. So if you guys saw the title, you're probably like, what? How does this kid think he's Donald Trump? Which, like, if you guys don't know, recently Donald Trump ran for president, and he was, like, kind of all over the news, you know? Like, you guys probably couldn't even go, like, one day on the news without seeing this guy, because, well, he's literally the president of one of the biggest countries on earth. Like, you're just gonna see him on the news. That's just kind of something that happens. But you might be thinking, like, what? The cringiest kid thinks he's Donald Trump? Like, what does Gen Alpha have to do with this? Like, Gen Alpha can't even vote. Why would they care about Trump? Now, Gen Alpha, they kind of have a complicated relationship with Trump. Like, it's not like Skibbity Toilet or the Grimace Shake, where all of Gen Alpha just collectively worships it the moment it appears in their TikTok feed. No, there's actually a bit of controversy surrounding him, which I'm not gonna get too political here, guys. This isn't a political video. But basically, like, even for Gen Alpha, being a Donald Trump kid, it's kind of a rarity. But, like, fact of the matter is that Donald Trump, he's still in literally every news story right now. Like, if you just go on the news, look up the president, you'll see him front page, bro. Like, but the fact of the matter is that since Donald Trump is in literally every single news story, especially every news story last year, like, there was just a lot of these, like, cringe Gen Alpha kids who, like, just glazed everything this man did. Like, they were, like, Make America Great Again hat kids. They were, like, glazing everything on earth that Donald Trump did. Which, like, I don't care if you like Donald Trump. Just don't be weird about it like these cringe Gen Alpha kids, bro. Like, at the end of the day, Trump's just a human being. Like, you don't gotta worship him that much, jeez. And, like, from the point of view of the subscriber, he kind of has the same opinion as me. Like, he didn't really care if you like Donald Trump. Because, like, he literally can't even vote. He wasn't old enough. So, like, he didn't care. It's not like he had a stake in the game or anything. But that was not the case for his good friend Greg. Because over the summer, this cringy kid spent his entire summer break watching Donald Trump interviews, watching The Apprentice, and reading Art of the Deal. Like, this guy was spending 50 hours a day, 20 days a week, just dedicating his time to watching Donald Trump, bro. Like, that's actually kind of pathetic. Like, imagine being such a beta that you dedicate your entire summer thinking about another man. Like, that's kind of fruity, bro. Like, I can get liking Donald Trump or whatever, like, you know, it's whatever. But to dedicate your entire life to another man who will never see you in his entire life is just wild. And, like, this spoiled kid grew up in a really rich household. Like, he was living in his father's towers and everything. But, like, Trump, he was on a whole nother level. He would never even hear of Greg. And, like, Greg and the subscriber, wealth never really divided the two. But, like, all the time Greg spent watching Donald Trump, like, the subscriber kind of started growing a bit distance. Like, they kind of started making a bit of a distance between each other because, like, the subscriber, he was like, okay, this is getting a little weird. I'm not even a Trump guy. Like, what's this guy going on? Meanwhile, Greg just kept watching more and more Donald Trump. And with all the real estate and the wealth his family had, and, like, the fact that his family never told him no, like, ever in his life, he began to think that he actually was Donald Trump. But, like, the subscriber, he was kind of aware of this problem, but he didn't know that there was literally, like, this Donald Trump mind virus, like, going around, bro. He just thought that he lost contact. But the subscriber, he didn't even know, like, this Donald Trump mind virus was spreading around, bro. Like, he was just like, okay, this is a little weird, but whatever. I guess you'll knock out of it once school comes around. So they just kind of lost contact over the summer. And the subscriber thought, whatever, I got other friends. If Greg cools off, maybe I'll meet up with him once school starts. So when school started, the subscriber saw Greg in the hallway basically immediately. Because Greg was covered in an orange spray tan with a massive blonde wig. And the subscriber, he was like, bro, what is that? Like, Donald Trump? Like, this isn't school costume day. What are you doing? To which Greg responded, what do you mean? Of course I'm Donald Trump. I got huge plans for this school. And I mean huge. Like, nobody does real estate better than me. That's how I get my kicks. To which the subscriber, he was like, okay, what a funny joke, bro. Yeah, that's a nice Donald Trump impression, but you're not Donald Trump, buddy. You can take the costume off. We're not playing costume day here. You can go back to being Greg. But Greg, he was just like, what a loser and sucker. Very sad, very sad. As he waddled off to class, wearing like this weird sweaty business suit and tie, get up and everything too. And the subscriber, he swears that he even saw Greg with a copy of Art of the Deal in his hands too. Like, bro, it was wild. So when Greg got to class, like the first class of the day was history. Like it was going to be a piece of cake. It wasn't like hard math or whatever. You just had to memorize things. And the teacher was like, okay class, can anyone here name all 50 states in the United States of America? And of course, since Greg thought he was literally the president, he raised his hand first. So the teacher just rolled his eyes and he was like, yes, Greg, can you name all of the states of America? But Greg, surprisingly, at first he was able to name all the states. But as he kept talking, he started making up new states. Because he was going like Arizona, Alaska, Hawaii, Canada, Greenland, Panama, and most importantly, the Gulf of America. And the teacher just cut off Greg. He was like, what, bro, Canada isn't a state? Like, what do you mean that's a whole different country? To which Greg, he just stared the teacher in the eyes in pure anger as he screamed, you're fired! As he threw a copy of Art of the Deal at the teacher's face. And after that, Greg, he was suspended until winter break, bro. Like, what did he think would happen? He literally just attacked the teacher. Which Greg, when he was in the principal's office with the history teacher, like the teacher was a little bit lenient on this kid because he was like, okay, this kid might be a little bit special, you know, maybe he had a little too much Elmer's glue in the back of the classroom, and like this is just one incident of misbehavior. Like if he apologizes, maybe we should let him off easy, you know. But Greg, he just responded like, this is political persecution. They're just mad because I'm the best president ever. I'm even better than Lincoln. Some even say better than George Washington. I know. I'm so awesome. And he just started like babbling about like random political topics. Like, I don't know. I'm not here to get political or whatever. It's just like, this is not stuff he can be doing in a classroom. So they're like, okay, this kid feels no remorse. I think we should at least suspend him for like a month or so. And so for a couple of months up until like very recently, the subscriber never even heard a peep from Greg. He was like, okay, his parents must have just grounded him or whatever. I guess I'll see him until like after winter break. And eventually, the end of winter break did come. Because over the fall, the election went down. You know, like, and Donald Trump, he ended up winning. Which the subscriber, he didn't really notice that because again, he wasn't even legally allowed to vote. So like it didn't really concern him, but he knew that it would concern his good friend Greg. Because since Greg had no outside influences from school to try and rein him into something resembling reality, over the entire fall break and over the winter break and all of the months that he was suspended, this kid just watched nothing but Donald Trump again. It was like his whole summer just repeated itself. Like this kid got two-shotted by Donald Trump, bro. So like previously, if you thought Greg was kind of like Donald Trump, this kid went from acting similar to Donald Trump to being an exact copycat of Donald Trump. Which the subscriber was like, you know when you get like that gut instinct that something's wrong, but you don't quite act on it? Well, you should always act on your gut instinct. Because, like, you literally have millions of years of gut instinct. All meant to keep you away from crazy people, bro. And, like, even the Art of the Deal mentions this. Like, I'll pull up some Trump quote. It literally, even Donald Trump himself thinks you should follow your gut instinct. And I think that this is definitely a situation, like one of the only situations in your life where I think that Donald Trump, you might want to listen to this guy. Like, I think it actually genuinely applies in this situation here. But thankfully, this guy, as I mentioned earlier, he was a subscriber. And unlike most of y'all who only like watch a few minutes of the video and then like tab out to do something else, this guy was like a real one. He like literally watched every video in full. He was like taking notes of these stories because he knew that one day he'd have to fight a cringy kid of his own. So he was like, he learned about the kung fu ways of the gut instinct, bro. And he actually decided to completely avoid paying attention to this Greg kid. But little did the subscriber know, Greg would soon bring all of the attention upon himself, whether the subscriber wanted it or not. Now, if you made it this far, comment Trump in the comments below. Like, it's just always interesting to see how many of you make it this far, and it always helps if you like, comment, and subscribe. Like, every little bit of support helps the channel, and it really means the world to me. Like, what do y'all do while watching these videos? I don't know, it's just always interesting to hear. Like, let me know in the comments below. Maybe you got some interesting stories to tell. Maybe you could even tell me a story of your own. Because, you know, I only get so many stories. I'm still kind of a small channel. I don't upload that much. But, you know, maybe if you give me more stories, I might be able to make some more bangers. But let's continue the video. Let's continue. Because right as school started up again, the real life elections were already over. But the school elections had just gotten started. Because if you don't know, like, some schools, they have, like, this student government thing going on, where you can basically just, like, write in votes for, like, some kid in the school election, and the kid basically just becomes, like, a figurehead or whatever. Like, maybe they get you to some paperwork at most, right? Like, it's mostly a symbolic role, you know, like some after-school activities or whatever, you know? Just a bit of lighthearted fun. But some of these kids took the student election seriously. Like, they were complete sweats at it. Like, they were genuinely thinking that they were going to be some really important figure in history because they got elected to be some janitor in a school position. But Greg, after watching every single episode of The Apprentice, decided that he was going to try and copy Donald Trump and win the election. Which, like, school elections, they always got a lot of sweats. But Greg, he was seriously trying to lock in for this election. Because, like, the other kids, while they were kind of sweats at it, like, they wanted to be seen as the popular kid or whatever, like, they didn't think it was a real election. They knew it was just, like, you know, some little extra activity to do. But Greg, he was so delusional that he thought this election was the real presidential election, and that he was Donald Trump that was destined to win. So when the elections were announced, Greg, he wanted to recreate that iconic scene of Donald Trump going down the escalator. So he went to the school stairs, he like kicked everyone out of his way. He was like, "Everyone out of my way, I have an important announcement, because despite all the losers and haters who always say I wore a wig, I'm running for president." And he literally cleared the entire stairway for himself. Like, literally, he wanted to recreate that scene 1-to-1 on that stairwell, right? But when he said he was running for president of the school, like, legit, everyone was just laughing. They're like, bro, there's no way the cringiest kid in the universe wins the election because he thinks he's Donald Trump. Like, there is not a single way in the entire universe, not if every single star aligns, that this kid becomes president. And this subscriber, he was just so embarrassed. Like, Greg made a whole scene in front of the entire school. So he just literally cut off Greg completely after that. And he thought that would be the last he saw of Greg. But as the campaign went on, he just kept seeing more and more posters of himself claiming to be Donald Trump. And like the other kids in the school, they didn't even like Greg. So they decided they would endorse a different candidate. The subscriber's longtime crush, Barb. Which, like, Barb, she was literally one of the most popular girls in the school. Like, everyone had a crush on her. And there was no way they would vote Greg over her, bro. Like, it looked like Greg was over. It looked like he had to put the fries in the bag, lol, bro. And this subscriber, he had enough of this. He literally was like, okay, I can't associate with this kid who's trying to beef with Barb right now. So he decided that he would confront Greg about this cringy Donald Trump obsession. But Greg, he just played it off. And he was like talking out loud. He was announcing to everyone in the hall, "You only want to vote for her because you like her. You know, back in my day, we used to just grab him by the And the subscriber, he was just so embarrassed. Like, literally everyone in the school, heard Greg just utter that complete potty mouth obscenity out of him, bro. So the teachers, they had to give him yet another suspension. But for some reason, despite all the vulgar, disgusting words that came out of Greg's potty mouth, apparently the suspension only made Greg even more popular. Because like most of the kids, they low-key hated the teachers. So they just kind of took any excuse they could to like someone who hated who they hated. So like Greg getting caught, it kind of made him into a martyr. And the teachers, they were like, okay, we are fed up with this Greg kid. We should probably just expel him. But apparently, like, since he was from such a rich, like, spoiled family, his parents literally just paid the school to keep Greg in there. And they were like, well, I guess you can't argue with a small loan of $1 million. So they just, like, let him off with a slap on the wrist. And he came back to school the very next day. So when Greg came back, this like really threw a wrench in Barb's plans because she thought that Greg would get expelled from school for good. Like she thought that she would have no competition. So she was like, oh no, all these brain rot kids are going to vote for Greg because he thinks he's Donald Trump. If only there was something I could do to try and capture that brain rot vote, then I could steal all of Greg's voters and then I will become the most popular. Because, you see, like Greg, he spoke in brain rot terms literally all the time, bro. Like, he was a complete menace. So Barb, she decided she was going to play his game. She was going to make a new slogan to counter Greg's campaign once and for all. But unfortunately, this would be a blunder that would come to haunt her entire campaign. Because actually, right now, you are going to need some extreme strength, triple deluxe cringe goggles. Like, all you guys need to do to claim them right now is to like and subscribe. Okay, does everyone have them on? You're actually going to need them. Okay, because Barb decided to make an advertisement to capture the brain rot vote and get all of the Gen Alpha kids in school to vote for her. So on like the morning intercom news or whatever, she paid for a slot to play on the intercom that would broadcast. And I quote, "Skibbity Barb! Skibbity skibbity Barb! Greg is using Trump's language! Donald's language! Greg is using Donald's language! Skibbity skibbity!" But like all the brain rot kids in school, they didn't even notice because they were just too busy scrolling TikTok or whatever on their phones. So they didn't even hear the announcement. And the whole school that did hear it just saw this embarrassing political slogan. And like everyone thought, these things can't possibly get worse for Barb. But like Barb's campaign, while that may have been a major blunder, it wasn't over yet. Like she didn't hear no bell. She was prepared to lock in. Because there was going to be a debate day at school where everyone could go on stage and give a speech on their ideas. Like on what they would do as school president or whatever. Which like basically, since all the other popular kids endorsed Barb, and like the only one that didn't was Greg, it would basically just be a 1v1 like debate stage setting. Like it would be the perfect opportunity for Barb to completely destroy Greg in a debate. Because let's be real, like all Greg ever spoke in his life was brain rot. Like how bad could that be? So like when the debate day came, like Barb, she gave a pretty normal speech, you know, like it was a pretty good speech. She just basically talked about like student government, you know, what it means for like democracy, blah blah blah, you know, like. But her speech, it would soon be eclipsed by a much dumber speech. Because when the mic was handed to Greg, he didn't even try making a speech. He just began speaking complete lies and nonsense. Like he was literally just making things up. Like he was going on and on like, Barb is letting all of the illegal kids squat in the playground. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're being let out of special ed institutions, and they're licking our play slides, and they're eating our glue. If we let Barb stay as school president, it's gonna be World War III. Only I can prevent a war from breaking out. Believe me, folks. I'll make the teachers abolish schoolwork on day one. Trust me, I'm the greatest. Which, like, while some of that was true, like, he was running for school president. He had no power on what goes down in that school. Like, it's a completely symbolic thing. And he was, like, trying to portray himself as an anti-war candidate or whatever. But, like, it's a school. You can't even declare war. Like, what? And who cares if other kids are breaking into the playground? Like, It's a playground. You're only using it for like 30 minutes every day. It's not that big of a deal, bro. And he was even promising that he'd abolish like all schoolwork and homework and everything. Like, there's no way you can do that. Like, you're only a figurehead, bro. Like, you're not the literal president. I hate to break it to you, kid, but you are not literally Donald Trump, bro. Like, oh my goodness, you guys. Sorry, I'm crashing out over seeing this cringy kid. I'm just losing it right now. Oh my goodness, you guys. Like, oh, I think I need to touch some grass, bro. This is just too far, you guys. And like, this rant, it wasn't just brain rotting me, because everyone in the audience, they were really getting brain rotted from this terrible speech. And like, some kid, he started getting really angry over it. Like, he got so angry that he pulled a Nerf gun out of his bag and hit Greg in the face with a Nerf bullet mid-speech. Like, oh my goodness, you guys. Like, this went from like 0 to 100 really quickly, you guys. And when the Nerf bullet hit Greg, he just started flopping on the floor like a fish. Like, he was making a dramatic scene over what was literally just like a tiny little Nerf bullet. Like, calm down, buddy. It's not that bad. So when he got knocked out on the floor, all the teachers were just like standing still. Like, there was an awkward silence for a minute or so. They were like walking up to the podium trying to get Greg. And when Greg rose from the podium, like, he splattered all this ketchup over his face from like these ketchup packets he got from the cafeteria. But like, most of the class didn't notice that. Like, he looked like he was covered in blood. And he started screaming, "Fight! Fight! Fight! Fight!" Ah! As the teachers started escorting him off stage because he was making a mess and throwing ketchup everywhere. But like, most of the school, they didn't see that. So it looked like Greg genuinely dodged a bullet, and they started cheering for him. But despite all these disastrous moments, it still kind of seemed like Barb was set to win by a pretty comfortable majority. Because like, she was the most popular in the school, and when election day came, it still seemed like she had it in the bag. Like, even the subscriber thought Greg couldn't win. And like, Loki, he was tired of hearing about Greg. Like, every day he would be battered with these terrible brain rot slogans from kids in the hall. Like, he just wanted this day to pass so he could never hear about this cringy kid again. That was until all the votes were counted, and it turned out that Greg won the majority of votes! Because it turns out, like, the majority of kids, apparently they actually hated the popular girls. Because, like, bro, you know how those popular mean girls from, like, the movies, you know? Like, not every popular girl's like that. But, like, low-key Barb, I think she kind of fit into that stereotype. Because, like, every time someone else tried to be more popular, she would just, like, create drama about them and, like, push them down. So she just kind of ended up making more enemies than she thought. And another problem was that there was only 2 choices on the ballot. So, like, even if you didn't like Greg, if you disliked Barb more, you'd still be voting for Greg. So most of the kids that disliked Barb just voted for Greg, purely because he wasn't Barb. So when Greg finally won, the subscribers like, okay, good for you, Greg, but how are you going to actually fulfill the promises you made? To which Greg, he just responded with nonsense. He was like, despite all the negative press, cafefe. Like, bro, that's not an answer to the question. What does that even mean? Like, that's not even a comprehensible sentence. I think that just in the time that he spent in the campaign, all the aluminium and the artificial dyes from his spray tans and his wig started seeping into his brain. Like, he was already becoming mad with power. So the subscriber watched Greg as he began to give his inaugural address on the playground. But as the inaugural address went down, he started completely backtracking on every single one of his promises he made. And the crowd started to get mad at him. And eventually Greg started to read the room. He started to realize people were getting mad at him. So he needed a distraction. Which, like, you know how I said schools couldn't declare war, right? Well, I meant they couldn't do that legally speaking. Because, like, at this point, the school basically just elected a criminal who was literally suspended twice. Like, it didn't even matter to Greg what the rules were at that point. Because Greg, he decided that to distract the audience from all his failed promises, he would declare war on the neighboring playground, and that all of the class would be drafted immediately. To which the subscriber, he's just like, yeah, I gotta go to the bathroom, Greg. I'm sorry. I just got really bad diarrhea today. I think I just need to go into the bathroom for, I don't know, the rest of the school day. I'll get back to you later. So the subscriber ran into the bathroom, But like there was a tiny little peephole in the window on the top corner. So the subscriber, he just started stacking boxes on top of each other as he crawled up to look through the window and see the battle that was going on outside in the schoolyard. Because Greg led all of the students to break into the neighboring school's playground as he gave them all Nerf guns to storm the school building, and he tried to break inside of the other school building too. And it started getting so chaotic. Like, there was Nerf bullets being fired in the playground. They were like breaking into the play place. Some kid even liked the slide. And it got so bad the cops had to be called. And as Greg was about to get arrested, he literally started screaming. Like, he was screaming so loud, even Greg in the other building could hear him scream, "I'm the scamming president! You're fired!" As the police escorted him into the back of their police car, bro. And ever since that day, Greg was never heard from again. The school ended up scrapping the whole student government thing altogether, and it seemed like everyone had forgotten about Greg. Greg spent so much time trying to create an outrage to get himself in the spotlight all the time, that when he ended up fading from public view, he ended up with no true legacy to his name. Because when you spend your whole life trying to be someone else, you end up forgetting how to make an identity true to yourself. And this is ultimately what happened to Greg. He was always the spoiled rich kid, with all the money in the world, but in the end, none of it was his own. He always lived in the shadow of his parents, knowing he would have to live up to their legacy, and ultimately, his obsession with this led him to thinking he was someone he wasn't. And so ended the tale of Greg. That was, until the subscriber got a phone call from Juvie, where Greg said his last known words, "I'm in the same cell as Jeffrey Epstein, and I turned the cameras off,